Hey guys, and welcome back to Quality Shot Boxing. And we have a really exciting video to go through. Anthony Joshua versus Oleksandr Usyk, Mark II, the rematch in Saudi Arabia at the Red Sea. Rage on the Red Sea is what they've called it. And it's going to be a very intriguing fight. A fight that hasn't really had as much build-up as I was expecting, if I'm being honest. But one that I'm very much looking forward to. And as it gets closer and closer, the fever for the fight really does begin to build. If you haven't done so already, do hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. We have Ali with me as well. How are you doing, Ali?
I'm not too bad, Faizan. How are you? Thank you for having me on your show, on your channel.
Yeah, all good, not too bad. And yeah, we're just sitting down. And to be honest with you, it feels like it's Saudi Arabia in the UK at the moment. It's so hot, so we're
Trust
pretty.
me,
Yeah,
trust me. For the
exactly.
past couple of weeks or months, it's getting too hot, way too hot.
Exactly. It's definitely been baking here. But
Mm.
I guess let's first of all talk about the first fight actually, because
Mm.
before we get into the second fight and how we think it's going to go and how both fighters are looking, etc. The first fight, I mean, were you surprised by it? Because we haven't really talked about it. So, what were your thoughts around the first fight? Given that Usyk, I think in the end, outboxed Joshua, it wasn't as comprehensive as maybe some people were saying. I think it was, I had it 8-4 Usyk, and yeah, he definitely did enough. And Joshua Clee tried to just box him, and probably not the right game plan. But how did you see it?
I think, well, I'm a firm believer that it was clearly Usyk who
Yeah.
deserved the victory. I mean, I felt watching Joshua, he was very hesitant. I think after the initial lot, the shock loss to Ruiz and the manner in which he lost and the knockdowns, I think that's affected him mentally. And I feel from what I've seen from his past few fights, he's lost that predator like instinct, that killer instinct. I think he's more careful about it, and I think during the rematch, and I know I'm going back to the Ruiz fight, but you'll appreciate when I bring it back to your question about Usyk. When the rematch with Ruiz, when he rematched him in Saudi Arabia, even though he played it smart, you could tell he was very hesitant to get into it with Ruiz. And the moments where he was getting into with Ruiz in the rematch, you could tell he wasn't really comfortable. Now, I think that's something that he hasn't addressed in that second fight, and it's something that's very difficult because it's a huge mental blockade, in my opinion. And I mean, jumping up from Ruiz to Usyk in terms of technical ability in boxing, it's a huge gulf. So he knows he's fighting a really technical person. And Joshua, in my opinion, he's a textbook fighter. He does his jab, the cross, the uppercuts, very textbook like. But he's not as free flowing. It doesn't come as natural to him as it comes to Usyk. So I think he wants to avoid another potential, a knockout loss like that, or a loss like that. So I think that's why he was very hesitant when he fought Usyk. Now I'm coming back to the Usyk. I think he was very hesitant when he fought Usyk, and that's something that's just a blockade with him. And he was so outpointed, so like he was just outfought, and it's just going to be very difficult for him to beat Usyk, in my opinion, the rematch.
Yeah, definitely outboxed. It was an interesting game plan. It kind of seemed, as you're saying, like he didn't really want to engage up close. He didn't want to fight inside. He was happy to stay at range, try and jab and move. And I guess similar to what we've seen for a lot of years with like Vladimir Klitschko. And a lot of people thought that after the loss to Ruiz, we might just see Joshua become that type of fighter. So what I would say though is interestingly, I guess the fight against Pulev, which was in between, right, the Ruiz and Usyk fight, I thought he boxed quite well in that fight, and he it was a more kind of a boxer puncher like display where he was jabbing and moving a little bit. Obviously, he knocked him out, right? Knocked him down a couple of times as well. It might just be the case that Pulev is not a particularly good mover. He's quite lumbering, right? He's a bit slow, so Joshua was happy to kind of expand his punches and say, you know what, I'm going to be more aggressive. Whereas I feel like against Usyk, because Usyk's always twitching, right? He's like, he's basically a bigger version of Lomachenko, right? And he is a typical fighter. Well, I was going to say he's a typical fighter. He's not. He's a special fighter who we've barely ever seen before. And he's southpaw for one. And obviously we know they always talk about tricky southpaws. Johnny Nelson said that Usyk isn't a special southpaw, which was like the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. But
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned about this the tricky southpaw.
Yeah.
I was reading a Facebook post earlier from an esteemed like boxing journal, like boxing doyen. He quoted Anthony Joshua in training, saying that he has a lot of trouble something along the lines of he has a lot of trouble encountering these tricky southpaws, and and I quote, it's a nightmare for me. If he was a right-handed orthodox fighter, I would have smoked him. And you see, it's a bit that response from Joshua is a bit of a mix for me, because Usyk is clearly the far better a boxer in terms of technique wise. If Joshua, in my opinion, the only way Joshua could possibly beat Usyk is if he applies his physicality, because you're not going to match him technically. You're not going to match him technically at all. He has to physically bully him, manhandle him. And I think, I mean, going back to your previous point about the Klitschko fight, I'm surprised Anthony Joshua hasn't really bounced back as quickly or as better, in my opinion, as he should have. Because, I mean, he fought Klitschko. Granted, Klitschko wasn't the world champion at that time, but he was still a huge name. And Joshua was knocked down in that fight, famously in the fight. But he brought it back up, and he famously gave the deadly uppercut to Klitschko. So I think I'm surprised as to why Joshua hasn't really addressed
I think that's why, though. I think you were talking about the Ruiz fight, but I actually think it was after the Klitschko fight he got a little bit trigger happy, because I think that was a war, right? And I know a lot of people saying Klitschko was at the back end of his career, but he came into that fight in the best shape I've seen him in for a few years, and that was a very good version of Klitschko. I wouldn't say it's the best, because I don't know if it's the best, but it wasn't that far off, to be fair. And I think when he did get dropped, and probably just the way it would have been after that fight, he would have been in agony. He would have been thinking, I don't want to be scrapping like that every single fight. And I think that's what happened against Ruiz. I think he was just of the mentality of, this is some chubby kid who I'm basically going to knock out. Like, that's what I think he took it for granted. I don't think he rated him. I also think they were looking to fight Big Baby Miller, right? So there are different people in the camp, and then he kind of just took his eye off the ball, and then that can happen. I get it. And Usyk, as you said, he just got outboxed. So he's not the most technically gifted fighter, like you've just mentioned. He is textbook kind of European, kind of British fighter. So good jab, good right hand, left hook, and that's kind of it. He doesn't, he can throw a very good uppercut, but we don't really see him throw combinations. He's not a combination puncher. When he was at his, people say when he was at his best, but I guess when he was in his earlier days, when he was fighting people that weren't as dangerous, he was throwing combination punches. We don't see that as much from him now, because like against Usyk, for example, he tries to throw a combination, he can easily get countered. He can easily get clocked, and we saw it in the previous fight, right? And against the southpaw as well, like there's always a danger, especially with like Joshua. He can't just keep on throwing jabs. Like the jab really can be really ineffective against the southpaw because of the difference in styles. So for him, he's going to be throwing a lot of right hands, and then how does he protect his right side, right? Because that's where he's been clipped in the past with left hooks. And we saw Usyk kind of pouring out with the left jab, left hook, kind of even almost kind of like Roy Jones-esque, where he just leads with the left hook and then goes for it. So that was a really, really interesting tactic. I think that I noticed as well.
So the comment you made about Joshua not underestimating Ruiz, I'll have to disagree with that personally, because I've noticed I watched the fight.
Yeah.
In almost pretty much all of his fights that Anthony Joshua has had, he's walked in with an air of confidence, especially later on. I mean, we're not talking the first 4 or 5 couple of fights. As time went on, as he got more and more, as he went up the ranks, he walked with an air, not an arrogant air, but a very confident. He exuded confidence. Whereas with the Ruiz fight, he looked completely different, like something was troubling him.
But I think something was off though, wasn't it? He said after it was a medical issue. Yeah.
Here's the thing: there are people who say, or there are reports that said he had a mental breakdown, or he had like a nervous breakdown, or I could be wrong, but he had something going on in the background, I think, in the changing room. And even during the fight, when he was troubled, you could hear him speak to Rob McCracken, his coach, saying,
Yeah.
"Rob, like what was he said? Something like, oh, why am I feeling this? What's happening?"
Yeah.
That's something he's never done before.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Joshua is not someone who's afraid of or to get into a fight. He's not someone who would give up. Whereas in the fight, you saw him like, I think, just leaning back on the ropes too much, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe spat out his gum shield. His gum shield dropped out easily. As a result, people are saying things. People are saying some things like, "Oh, he gave up. He did." I don't think someone who's so used to doing something a particular way will just suddenly switch off.
No, I agree.
I think the issue with Joshua is that as a result of that loss to Ruiz in such a fashion, he hasn't been able to bounce back as well as he could have, as well as he should have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
No,
I mean,
agree.
we heard reports afterwards where Anthony Joshua's dad was. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but Anthony Joshua's dad was having a go at Eddie Hearn, saying,
Yeah, so
"Your
he
son is
did.
complaining."
I think Eddie Hearn did, like, he confirmed he did, but apparently it wasn't to do with, like, I know there were reports saying that he came out and said, "Oh, you know, he shouldn't have been in there fighting or something," right? Because or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's the
What
one.
I mean,
That's the
Anthony
one.
Joshua has confirmed it was like it's some kind of medical thing, but he's not going to discuss it, which is like fair play to him until after he's retired. But Eddie Hearn said it wasn't. His dad wasn't saying to him he shouldn't have been out there. He was just like, basically he was really angry because he was emotional, right? And he didn't like seeing his son
Lost
like
his
that, which is
son and
understandable.
everything. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that seems to obviously have definitely changed the scope of his
Mhm.
career, because it was all about undisputed, and then he has had chances, and we haven't got Joshua Wilder. We didn't get AJ like Fury as well, and I don't know if that's going to happen. Fury saying he's retired, whatever. But I guess getting back to the first fight, like, we both agree that like Usyk got outboxed. I think we both agree, by the sounds of it, that Joshua
Joshua
didn't
got
have.
outboxed. You mean Joshua
Sorry,
got
yeah,
outboxed?
Usyk
I
outboxed
agree.
Joshua even, yeah,
Yep.
and Joshua didn't have the right
Agreed.
game plan. You know,
Did not.
he was a little bit. You know, he tried to outbox probably one of the best boxers on the planet, right? So it's like a
Oh yeah.
stupid game plan.
Fact.
You don't go in and say, like, you know, it's like, for example, going in against, you know, Wilder and saying, you know what, I trust my chin. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hang my chin out there and say, you know what, go on, hit me. And it's just crazy, right? Like, it's just
Yeah.
carnage. So
Yeah.
I think Josh, and to be fair to Joshua, I think it proved two things. The first one is, of course, yeah, not the right game plan. Should have known that, and also should have the boxing IQ and also the personal, I think, confidence to say, okay, if my team's telling me that this is going well, but he should have known this isn't going as well as they're saying, because his team was telling him, "You're doing great, beautiful work," as if like he's winning the fight. And so he said after as well, I thought I was like Muhammad Ali. I thought I'd won the fight because of what my corner was saying. But he should have known, really, if you have an elite boxing IQ, he should have known, look, this isn't going the way that I think it's going. Sometimes when you're in the ring, I know it can be different and you focus on the positives, but he should have had the wherewithal to say, you know what, I need to change it up. I'm not going to listen to my corner. I'm the one in the ring. I can change it. And I think he's always boxed to orders, and that's fine. But I think in that moment, like, he should have known. The second thing that I have to say is that it does prove that, and I guess he's an Olympic gold medalist, so it's not a surprise that he does have very good boxing ability. He just doesn't have as good a boxing ability as Usyk, who is a pound for pound boxer, right? He is a master boxer, so you don't box with a master boxer. He's a boxer puncher, Joshua. You were saying about bullying and stuff, and there's two ways of looking at it. I guess I'll get your opinion on it as well. I guess the first way of looking at it is, okay, well, let's just say he's not going to box. He's not going to try and box him, right? But that's out the window. He's tried it, didn't work. He's got two ways of potentially approaching it. And the first one is, like you were saying, I guess, he can go in and potentially go in kind of relatively heavy. So say if he went in around 18 stone, which I've seen pictures of him. I don't think he's going to be that. But say he does, and he says, you know what, I'm going to last. I can go flat out. I can go 6 rounds, say, right? And I'm basically going to do almost like a Chisora, but a more polished, efficient version of a Chisora, where I'm going to go in, I'm going to rough you up, I'm going to bully you, I'm going to throw a lot, throw combination punches, I'm going to try and get you on the inside, throw uppercuts, throw the right hand a lot, and hurt you and dent you, basically, right? And look, if I get clipped, I get clipped as a counter, and you know what? Fine, you're the better boxer, right? But at least I've kind of given everything. I put my kind of I'm basically wearing my heart on my sleeve. I've given my all out there. That's what he could do. Now that is like a very high risk but potentially high reward
Yeah.
way of going about it. I don't think he's going to do that. I personally wouldn't do that either. I think he needs to be a bit more clever about it. And I think the second option is the kind of boxer punch away, which is I think he needs to adopt a mix. And I guess we kind of saw against Pulev, but the issue with that Pulev one is a lot of people said that he was stuck in between styles. I thought he boxed okay, but the thing is, Usyk's not Pulev. And, you know, Robert Garcia now he's got in his corner. He is someone who is very clever, but also he's clinical, right? So his punches don't tend to waste a lot of energy on punches like Mikey Garcia, right? I mean, he's a fantastic boxer, his brother, right? So I think if you look at it, and it depends, like interestingly, so he's got rid of Rob McCracken, sorry, who is the kind of 1-2 punch, right? That's the Olympic style boxing because he's the Olympic coach.
So simple compared to like professional ranks, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's literally just like simple 1-2 left hook. And he's kept I've forgotten his name now. The other coach, I think he's Spanish, isn't he? But his name eludes me at the moment. But yeah, anyway, Robert Garcia he's got, and also the old coach who also he also trains Reactpor as well. But yeah, anyway, he's basically in the corner, and he was the one that they brought in for the Andy Ruiz fight to basically make him into a slicker boxer. So Angel Fernandez, that's it. Angel Fernandez is still in there. So he's the slick kind of boxing trainer, right? So interesting he's kept him, but he's want Robert Garcia to say, okay, well, make me kind of rougher and tougher. I was really happy that he brought in Robert Garcia because I was like, he needs a change of pace. I don't necessarily think it's because Robert McCracken's a bad trainer. I just think it clearly gone stale. Like he wasn't happy with the instructions in the corner. He wasn't happy that they were saying that he was doing a great job when he wasn't. So it's just time for a change. And he chose to, I guess, stay with Angel Fernandez and say, okay, I'll add Robert Garcia. That's fine. But it's interesting to see. So the second option, anyway, sorry, I kind of gone a bit off topic, was to be more of a boxer puncher and say, okay, I'm going to be more calculated. What I'm going to do is I'm happy to, at times, so rather than, I guess, going flat out in rounds, is fighting for portions of rounds and saying, okay, I can see
like
that.
Apply pressure for certain points, then back off a bit.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously, there's a lot of fighters that they turn it on for the last 10 seconds of a round, right? And that's why they say fighters nick around, because in the judges that they've got the last 10 seconds in their mind, and it can play a big part. I don't think Joshua's going to win it on points, though. I think if he's going to do it, he's going to have to systematically break Usyk down. I think he needs to throw to the body a lot. I think, Usyk mentioned after the first fight that the body shots hurt, which is interesting. So he actually admitted it. I know Usyk has bulked up since, and we'll touch upon Usyk in a second, because he's definitely got thicker, but he's done it in a really good way. Like he's gradually got bigger, and now he's a true, fully fledged heavyweight. And I know people talk about, there's a height difference and there's a weight difference. It's not as much as people think.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not. We're not talking about Tyson Fury versus Andy Ruiz, right? In terms of like height difference, we're talking about Joshua's 6'6" and Usyk's 6'3". There's a 3 inch,
6'6", something like that.
Yeah, there's a 3-inch difference, right? It's not massive. It really isn't. I think Joshua though needs to dig to the body a lot. I think he needs to try and break him down big time. He has to. They always say with movers, right? And I guess Canelo did a very similar thing with B.J. Saunders. Canelo also did a similar thing with Amir Khan. How did he beat them? He beat them by going to the body. With movers, with slick movers, boxers. Usyk is better than just a mover and boxer, but you go to the body. You go to the body early and regularly, right? A left hook with him, I guess. The left hook to the body is a good shot for a southpaw because Usyk's going to lead with the left hand. The right hand's normally up here, right, trying to protect his right side. He doesn't want to get hit with the left hook or jab. So if he's up here, his right hand's up here, right? So sorry,
No, if his right hand's back, he's orthodox. If it's this way,
so his right hand's out even as a southpaw. Getting
yeah,
mixed up on camera. So right hand's out of southpaw, so left hand's up. But as he's throwing the jab, right, if Joshua can time him and go left hook to the body and beat him to the punch there, or get close enough, dip under, and then throw the left hook, that's a really good tactic to utilize. Why not? I mean, if he can even. The other thing is going to be how good is his head movement, because if his head movement is good enough and he's able to evade, if he's able to dip under and then throw the left hook, Usyk can't do anything about that because he's already going to throw the jab, right? But Joshua needs to be really clever. It needs to be really, really to the point, where he's timing it to almost perfection, because Usyk is so good at throwing feints at, like, just by not even
movement,
doing
his angles, creating angles, and
yeah,
all
like
that.
Tony
Yeah.
Bellew said, he's literally throwing feints but barely moving because his feet, him and Lomachenko, their feet twitch as if they're going to do something, and their whole upper body is not moving really, but their feet look as if they're going to do something. And then mentally, as the opponent, as the fighter who's facing them, mentally it's exhausting because you're thinking about so many different things going on, and mentally and then physically it drains you.
But that comes with the experience. I mean, Joshua's amateur record was about maybe 40, 42 fights.
Yeah,
Usyk was about 300 something fights,
exactly.
300,
Yeah.
330. So obviously they're going to have the experience. Like there's a reason why to Usyk everything comes so natural to him, if that makes sense. That's why I think this fight it's tough, because if Joshua uses his strength, I think it's Joshua's fight to lose. If it's Usyk, sorry, for the most part, I still think Usyk would probably win it, because Usyk, he hasn't let himself go like Ruiz in the second fight, in the rematch with Joshua.
Yeah.
Usyk is actually training hard, and now he's got this support of the Ukrainian people. I mean, with the Russian invasion, he really wants to do this for his people, so he has an even deeper motivation to go do it. I mean, he went back. They had the initial fight day, if I'm not mistaken. That had to be pulled back, or before the initial fight day was announced. He went back to obviously find the Ukrainian army, and that's where the rematch was delayed. He took some time out to come do the rematch. Then I think after this, he probably will go back. So he's got even more of a impetus to do it, more for reason, motivation behind it. I think that's going to be another huge key factor in determining the outcome of the fight.
Yeah, agreed. He's got a massive motivation, right, to definitely do it for his country, and I think he's always been very patriotic from the looks of it, and it's very commendable as well, like that he has that. But yeah, I guess just to finish off my point about the boxer puncher was, and the body work it's easier said than done against Usyk because he's just so good. He'll protect himself, I guess. But if Joshua is able to break him down to the body, then it's inevitable that Usyk will slow down. It's inevitable that Usyk will slow down.
I agree. I mean, hitting the body.
No. He doesn't necessarily need to knock him out early on. What I think he needs to do is he needs to dent him early on, so he needs to hurt him early on, but go to the body regularly, so he's breaking him down consistently. And if the damage is done in the first 5-6 rounds, Usyk might not be knocked out, but he'll be slower on his feet. And if he's slower on his feet, he's easier to time, he's easier to hit. And that's when then Joshua can take over. Joshua can fight for 12 rounds, and he can then knock him out later on. And I think that is really the only way I see him winning the fight, because I can't see him knocking him out in the first 5 rounds. I just think Usyk's too good for that, to just get knocked out by like one punch. I think he needs to be systematically broken down. There's a reason why he's unbeaten. There's a reason why he's won so many of his amateur fights. He's an Olympic gold medalist, blah, 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 etc. And for Joshua, I think he needs to be at almost his very best. But what were your thoughts on like the training situation? Do you think it's a good pick, and also do you think it'll have much of an effect on AJ's style? I guess.
I think with Robert Garcia, I mean, going back to your previous point of the whole, I think for his career, and because I think at the moment he's currently in a very precarious situation in terms of his current standing. I mean, even if he loses, he's not completely out of the picture. But if he does lose, I think his popularity, him being the A side, is going to take a significant hit. So I think for the benefit of his career and potentially his mental well-being, because if he suffers another loss, a third loss now, he's going to be, it's going to affect him even more so, I reckon. So I think for the benefit of his boxing career as well, but more importantly, his mental state, I think it's a good decision for him to take Robert Garcia. I think he's an esteemed boxing coach, one of the top boxing coaches in the world, and I think it's right for him to do so. Moving on from McCracken has done an excellent job with Joshua so far. Not only has he taken him to the gold, won the gold, he even took him a step further and enabled him to win the world championships. I mean, one or two, on two
Unified it,
separate
yeah.
occasions. Unified, that's the one.
Yeah, three different bouts. Yeah, he's only missing one.
Exactly. 2-time, as you said, at the end of the second fight, 2-time. So I think McCracken's done an excellent job. Having said that, you kind of sometimes you can't blame McCracken for maybe feeling a little bit maybe upset or feeling upset for McCracken, thinking, okay, he's taken him so far, why suddenly leave him? Does that make sense? So there's two sort of sides to it, but I think logically the best thing would be for Anthony Joshua to go to Garcia. I think taking on Garcia at this situation with Usyk is a very wise decision for him because, I mean, once again, like I said, Garcia is an esteemed boxing coach. He's coached, elite level fighters, and I think this will be a good test to see. It's not just for Joshua, a good test for Garcia himself. If he's able to, if we are able to see a significant improvement in Joshua, what's to say he doesn't go even further, doesn't fight, let's say, Wilder and beat him, or even Tyson Fury if Tyson Fury fights available. Agreed. So I think it's a good decision, taking everything into account, for Joshua to move on with leave McCracken and join Garcia.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was definitely a good decision, and yeah, it's interesting, like you said about Robert Garcia, and he said in an interview that they've been working on the mental side, right? I know you mentioned it earlier, at the mental side, like with Joshua, that's what they've been working on first and foremost. And yeah, like I've interviewed boxers in the past, and I said, how much do you think is the mental side? And they say it's a massive percentage, right? Because and in any sport, I think, but especially in boxing, when there's so much on the line, and if you are holding something back in a fight, you can get hurt quite badly, right? Because you're kind of daydreaming, your eyes are quite on the ball, and so I think Robert Garcia's been working on that with him big time, and that's something that I'm sure we'll see. Well, we'll see whether it makes a difference or not. In terms of Usyk, then, because we talked a lot about Joshua. What do you think? I mean, first of all, he broke down Joshua in the first fight. How do you see Usyk approaching the second fight? Do you think it's more of the same, or do you think he'll come up with something different in the second fight?
I'm not sure. I think what Usyk will do, he's got the better boxing IQ, so I think he'll tailor his approach based on how Joshua is. So he'll be his style will be receptive and reactive on Joshua's style. If Joshua's going to go on the attack, aggressive from the off, Usyk will be able, to keep him at bay, maybe move around, throw a couple of shots, keep him at bay, tire him out, then maybe move into the kill. If Joshua maintains the same approach he did in the first fight, I think Usyk would move on with the same sort of strategy. And now he's heavier, he's stronger, his punches will hurt more. And I think Usyk's incredible, stellar boxing IQ is what will allow him to do so. He's not one-dimensional. Joshua is, I mean, from what we've seen so far, and the way I say maybe, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, I mean this with utmost of respect, I think he's very one-dimensional in his approach. He's very textbook. He's very much like 1-2, 1-2, maybe throw an odd cut, like he'll hold on to you, throw a couple of uppercuts, maybe right hooks, but he's not as creative. What I'm trying to say is he's not as creative as Usyk. Usyk has the experience and the intelligence to come up with different plans, in my opinion, if need be. He knows when to go on the attack. He knows when to not to go onto the attack. He knows when to hold back. He knows when to sort of toy around with the person. So I don't know. Just to come back to your question, I don't know exactly what approach Usyk will take. What I do know, what I do feel and believe is that Usyk's style will be tailored to Joshua's style.
Yeah, No, I agree. I think he's got such a like vast tool bag,
Mm,
does Usyk. Like, and it's not just the fact that he's a southpaw. I think, yeah, look, being a southpaw is an advantage, and I think AJ is clearly a lot of fighters are not particularly good against southpaws because it's
mm,
like for example, in tennis, you play a left-handed player. It's hard, right? Because left-handers they like southpaws. Pretty much the majority of fighters or opponents they face are right-handers, so they're
yeah.
used to that. Whereas as a right-hander, you're just not as used to it because the majority of
Yeah.
people you're facing are still righties as well. So coming up against a lefty is difficult. I get that, but then these guys are elite boxers. They should be
Mhm.
used to it by now. He should have had a number of people in sparring, and they were talking. They asked him because apparently, someone from 258 management was saying that he was dropping all his like sparring partners or whatever. But
So to say again, who was dropping the sparring partners?
AJ was dropping all his sparring partners or a lot of them. But AJ said, "I don't want to talk about sparring because sparring. I want to focus on the fight because if I don't win, like nothing matters, right?" So that was fair play to him because you don't want to talk about sparring. I think it's a bit of a stupid question, but
Yeah.
for Usyk, as you say, like he's got so many different things he can access. Like he can, I guess the only thing that you can say might be not a negative, but something that he maybe doesn't have is one punch concussive power.
Mm,
But in saying that, it doesn't really need it because he can break you down and knock you out anyway, right? Because we saw against Joshua in the first fight, he exhausted him so much he almost knocked him out at the end. And Joshua really, albeit if
mm,
it wasn't for the bell, might have been knocked out in the end. So I think for Usyk, he's got incredible foot speed, ability to move around the ring, which means defensively he's great, and that's going to tire out Joshua to a degree. And I was talking about body work, but the thing with Usyk is he'll be clever. He'll just drop his left hand and say, or right hand, sorry, even, um, or he'll read it right and say, okay, I'm going to throw the jab to the body, to your body, or I'm going to throw the left
mm,
hand right, which is his backhand. I'm going to throw that more often and not throw the jab as much and protect my body basically and drop my right hand a little bit. I mean, he's got so many different things, so many different angles he can utilize as well. And he pivots as well, like Lomachenko does, which is incredible to see. And they're both guys, they say that they're so good at moving because of the dance
mm.
lessons they used to have, right, growing up, which is so interesting with Papa Lomachenko, or
You know,
Papachenko.
interesting fact. Interesting fact.
Hmm,
Cuban boxers are known for doing like I think some sort of salsa dancing or tap
yeah,
dancing. That's why Cuban boxers as well, they're very sort of fluid on their feet.
yeah,
It's a huge contrast to the Mexicans. Mexicans are more, brawlers, more like warriors.
come
Like
forward,
they
yeah.
will fight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whereas Cubans are more sort of slick, more with their feet, and you've seen it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I think he's like, Kung Fu fighters are really exciting to watch, but in terms of longevity, in terms of like, preserving your health, obviously being more fluid on your feet is obviously going to be an advantage. But yeah, in terms
Mhm.
of this matchup, it's difficult to know, the
So my
only thing
brother just came into the view. So he came into
that's
the
right.
camera.
The only thing that I would say is that for Usyk,
Mhm.
he looks like he's putting a bit more weight. So I guess you could say, well, okay,
Yeah.
is there the potential that Usyk might be slightly sluggish, given that he's now put on weight. Although all the reports, like Amir Khan was saying as well, that he's just as fast. He's put on the weight really well, um, and he hasn't really lost any speed at all, and he doesn't look sluggish at all. But let's just say that he does a little bit. That could be a disadvantage, of course, the extra weight. The only other thing you could say is, okay, well, he's proven the first fight he can hurt Joshua to a degree.
Mhm.
Can he knock him out? I don't know. And we haven't really seen him. Like I know Joshua clipped him a couple of times in the first fight, but we haven't really seen him take one flush, like a really
As
a
in,
wind up taken flush.
as
Uh,
in Joshua punching Usyk, or punching Joshua.
so Joshua punching Usyk, we haven't really seen Joshua land or anyone really land super flush on Usyk where he hasn't been expecting. He's always kind of braced himself, or he's managed to just kind of move enough that it's just a clipping. It's a clip rather than like
Mm,
fully flush. So it's
mm.
interesting to see. I don't really have any question marks over his chin. I think he's probably got a really good one, but that's just something to obviously look towards as well. But we'll see. I mean, as you said, he might get bullied because it's slightly smaller, but I just don't see it. And the more we discuss this, the more I talk about it, the more I just think it's a really, really, really tough fight for Usyk. Sorry, for Joshua even, because Usyk is just so good. And he's just so slick and he has so many different things he can do. And it's almost like, does Joshua need to have a really good day and Usyk have an average day for Joshua to win? And that's kind of how I'm thinking it might even happen, which I don't know. Who knows?
You know, that's a very good question. As in, what you said now about Usyk having average day, Joshua having a good day, that could be right. It also could be right, but I mean, Joshua could also win if they both have a good day. Joshua could win if they both have a bad day, and vice versa. It's a very tough thing because I see as things going, certain factors going to Usyk's favor and certain factors going to Joshua's favor. I mean, if Joshua physically is more aggressive this fight, because in the first fight Joshua was holding back a few punches, he wasn't throwing as much as we've seen him, in previous fights. So I'm thinking, how come? Why? Again, possible mental blockade. Now, you said that him with Garcia, he's working on the mental side of things. If that's the case, and hopefully that's true, and Joshua is able to overcome that, and he, as a result, is more aggressive, I think that's an excellent factor that could help Joshua win the fight, just being more aggressive. Because Usyk, I think he will take a lot of confidence going to this next fight based on the last fight. Whereas if Joshua turns it back on him, Usyk, yes, will have the boxing IQ to handle it, but would he have the resolve to continue to sustain handling it? Does that make sense? Bearing in mind, and obviously Usyk has fought, I'm sure he's fought, hard punches, big punches previously. But the thing that separates it this time is that Usyk is coming into the heavyweight division. He's not a natural heavyweight. Joshua is a natural heavyweight. This is Joshua's division, natural division. Yeah. So him coming into this division is a bit of a difficult one. Now he's even put on more weight.
I think Usyk is a natural heavyweight now, though, because he's had enough fights, right? So this will be his fourth fight at heavyweight. I think he's now a natural heavyweight, if that makes sense. You grow into a weight class.
This is going to be his third fight because he's fought Chisora, then he fought Joshua.
Chaz Witherspoon, that was the first fight.
Oh, yeah. But that doesn't necessarily make him, I would say, a natural heavyweight. A natural heavyweight is someone who is pretty much the whole career have been in that.
Yeah, true. Division. But then, I mean, in the amateurs, he also fought, he fought Joe Joyce, right?
Yeah, but
so I think
with the amateur divisions, they're slightly different.
Yeah, they are, because they're divisions.
I mean, there is some crossover, and I think that's why moving into the heavyweight division for Usyk, it's I would say it's okay, kind of expected. I wouldn't say it's naturally his natural. I would not say it's his, in my opinion anyway, his natural division per se. He can move into it. I mean, like Holyfield. Holyfield wasn't a natural heavyweight.
Yeah.
It was, I think, light heavyweight or cruiserweight, if I'm not mistaken.
Cruiserweight, yeah.
He ended up moving into the heavyweight division because it's fairly close to it.
Yeah. No, agreed. I think, I mean, Usyk's definitely one of the best cruiserweights of all time, and it looks like he could go down as one of the best heavyweights if he continues at this rate, but we'll see. I guess we can give predictions if you don't mind. And what do you see playing out then, Ali? What in terms of the fight? Who do you predict to win and why, and also what round and by? Well, I say what round. I guess that's if it's the knockout.
I think this is going to be a very tough question, but I mean, based on the facts that we've spoken about today, I think it's very difficult to decide. Having said that, I think I'll edge it to Joshua.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. I just think something inside me, something tells me like a gut feeling that Joshua will edge it out. Whether it's through his ability, maybe, or perhaps maybe the judges slightly being in his favor, I don't know.
Okay.
It's tough, but I'll edge it out to Joshua. Either late knockout or decision points.
You got to pick one. You can't say two. Points or decision. Sorry, points or decision. Late or points.
Yeah. Okay. Points.
Okay, interesting.
Split decision. It'll be tight.
That is probably the most unlikely betting scenario that is, I'd imagine. But you know what? You never know.
Yeah, that's
especially
true. That's true.
it could be the case that he knocks him down a few times, and then he wins that way, right? And not
Yeah.
necessarily outboxed him, but just has done enough and hurt him enough. I'm going to
Mhm.
go with, I guess, a little bit of bias being a Brit, but I'm going to go with AJ late on. So maybe
Yeah.
like round 9 to break him
Okay.
down and stop him. I don't think it will be like a clean knockout. I think it'll be like Usyk stopped on his feet. And I think if he does win like that, it'll have to be, like going to the body early, and he'll have to hurt Usyk early on. So
I agree. I
there's
agree.
some big ifs there, but that's my prediction anyway. We'll see. I think the safe prediction is to go with Usyk points, because he'll just be
Mm.
evasive. He'll avoid Joshua. He'll box and move and kind of counter him. But we'll see. We'll see. Thanks, Ali, for being on. Appreciate it.
Thank
Is
you
there
so
anything
much
you want
for
to
that.
say before we?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I just want, I hope this is going to be an excellent opportunity for AJ, to prove all his doubters wrong. I mean, I've had my doubts, but I still support him. He's a Brit. His story. I mean, I love the guy so much, and I want him to do well. And hopefully, he overcomes his troubles and gets the victory.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. I mean, Usyk. I mean, both fighters, great fighters for sure, and yeah, hopefully it ends up being a good fight, and
Yeah.
some good fights with the undercard. If we have
Mm.
time, maybe we'll do a separate video just to break down
Yeah.
some of those like
Perfect.
Hergovich and Zhang and stuff on there, which
Yeah.
is some interesting fights on there. But yeah, thanks
Mm.
guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. Do remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much.